everybody. It's Ron and Hope Unfiltered. Real, raw, relevant.
Say it again.
Ron and Hope Unfiltered. Real, raw, relevant.
And we got the mugs to prove it.
Yes, we do.
We have
Cheers.
gone. Look, we have gone to the next level.
We have.
When you got mugs with your
We
little
are so
podcast
official.
program, oh my goodness!
And they can be yours for the low price of your donation to the ministry of $10,000.
Can they really?
The one that I actually sipped.
Do we
out
have
of?
these available? We don't have these available. It's just ours, isn't it? Well, maybe we might need to make this really exclusive.
Oh, that's why I said $10,000, Ron. And it's tax deductible.
You made it very, very exclusive.
Tax deductible. If y'all need a tax write-off,
well,
you won't get a mug. You can just sow into the ministry.
You know what? Are we recuperated yet from the max out?
Honey.
It's amazing.
We never recuperate.
It's amazing. Recuperated.
I was the one almost who messed. Look, I can't even talk.
You getting
I'm
on
not
me.
recuperated.
Okay, Hope just made up her word. You always do that to me.
I did.
She has a word she made up.
That's karma,
The fact is, it comes back around. The Bible says if you sow it, then what will happen? Yep, it'll come back and reap it. But the fact is, we had just an amazing time. For those of you who don't know, you only know us by our podcast. Hope and I do pastor on both coasts. Feel so fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. Amazing, amazing people called Redemption.
It is.
And but we also have a ministerial fellowship, and over the years, we've just had a lot of dynamics added to our life. And one time a year, we get to bring all those pastors and leaders in, and we just finished that up last week on the East Coast. We might throw it back to the West Coast. Yeah, that's right, 2 weeks ago. And the fact is, the hours are long and it's a lot of work, but man, how rewarding is it to change your life? And and that's a little bit about what we're wanting to do here today.
Yeah.
Is we want to unlock something that'll change lives. Before I introduce, or I'll let you introduce our guest, how has your book changed your life?
Wow. I mean, in many ways, spiritually, emotionally, because we overcome, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And that's what my book was about, is getting it out. And it's a testimony. And then how it's changed other people's lives. It's just crazy. But it has put me on platforms that I would have never been on before.
Never been on, Put you in rooms with people that you never would have got to talk to. And not only that, but as your husband, somebody who lives with you every day, in the natural sense, we can talk about spiritual dynamics forever. In a natural sense, I have seen a focus come out of you since you had to really, it takes a tremendous amount of focus to really pour your heart and soul into a book, and a book that moves other people and empowers people. And since that time when you launched that effort, I saw just a dialing in on your part that began to happen in so many other areas of your life.
It's true.
Your book did better than mine. The fact is, I've always said can say it.
What?
Your book did a lot better than mine, actually.
But you know what? Let me stop you right there. Your book was launched in 2010. And that our platform was way smaller back in 2010.
And we needed who we're getting ready to introduce back in 2010.
Yes, we did. I think we need to relaunch your book because your book is so powerful, Ron.
I've often thought about that.
It is such a powerful book.
Me being an author, that name was not out there. So it was 2010. You only had Facebook 2 years. I was only like one.
And it's called, people may not know, listening, it's called The Necessity of an Enemy.
And I think at that time I had 10,000 Facebook followers, and now I got 1.6 million.
Yeah,
so I've often thought about a relaunch because the book does have a powerful message. But the fact is, that book, even in its infancy, took me to places that I'd never been. Yours has done the same thing.
Yeah.
And Hope's going to introduce our guest, and I want to say one thing before he starts talking.
Okay.
Because we have something that happens to us all the time, and I want to encourage those people with what they're getting ready to hear. Go ahead and tell them who our guest is.
This guy right here, Chandler Bolt, I get kind of sentimental when I have guests on our podcast.
Their whole family is very meaningful to us.
Yes, very meaningful. They were a part of Redemption for many years. And another little country boy around the corner, actually, a country boy living in.
Country boy gone city,
Yes, gone city. I mean, gone galactic. And so it just makes me so proud, almost like motherly proud, to have guests on our programs and
to see them doing well.
Yeah, to see them doing well. And Chandler owns and is the mastermind behind an organization, a business called Self-Publishing School, and just done. I won't tell all the dynamics of it because he can do it better than me. But he's just published his book called Published, and doing so well in airports all over, in places,
bookstores.
Bookstores. Just a genius at doing what he's doing. So we wanted to have him on today to help people figure out how to publish their story.
And here's why. Everywhere I go, and I mean it without fail, and it doesn't just have to be a conference or preaching. It can be literally checking out food at the line and they recognize who I am. And people say, I have a book.
Yeah.
I have a book. Let me tell you something. Before you dial out of this podcast and say, okay, that's for book writers. I'm not going to ever write a book, so I'm going to go do this. Hang in here, because everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to say. Everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has lessons learned. But there was a day where if you didn't have a certain type of name and didn't have a marketing machine behind you, you had no chance of ever getting a book published. The person that we're getting ready to bring to you has changed the game, where everybody now can have a voice and can have a book printed and go through this school, and he walks you hand in hand in how to make that happen.
And it's reasonable.
It's very reasonable. And not only that, but it's also someone whose character I can vouch for, because he's always been very generous to the ministry and the things we've done. So the generosity of this man and his desire to make other people's life better is extremely encouraging. Chandler, man, we're so glad to have you.
And he's got a big old pretty smile.
He smiles.
The best smile. He gets the greatest smile award.
Exactly. And you know what? You were up in the Bay Area with us for a while, but you done moved down to L.A. Are you still there?
No, he moved.
You're not there anymore?
I'm in Austin, Texas now.
Austin. Okay.
It worked out so great. I mean, obviously going to Redemption Greenville so long we growing up in Walhalla, an hour away, and we'd drive an hour one way each way to go to Redemption Greenville. Yeah. And then when I was living in San Francisco, you guys came to the Bay Area, and it just worked out. It's kind of similar, about a little over an hour to be able to at least come every now and then. But now I'm in Austin, Texas.
I guess we got to put a campus there.
Let's do
it.
It's a sign.
East, west, and middle.
That's right.
You know what? I kind of want to get out of your way, because I don't want to show how ignorant I am of your world. But I do love people that change the game.
Yeah.
I wanted my church to come into cities and change the game. And I think in your world, you've done that. And I want you to just grab our audience with a little bit of what you do and how it can help them, because I do believe there's a lot of people that may not have a well-known name, but they got something to say. And so just talk to us about your business and how you got here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the question that you asked, I hope, a second ago, Ron, which was, how did your life change when you published your book? Because we believe that books change lives.
Yeah.
They change the lives of authors, and they change the lives of readers.
Yes.
Right? And everyone listening to this right now most likely has had their life changed by a book. If not, you need to read more.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe just read the Bible.
Yeah, right. That'll help.
That's a book that's changed a lot of people's life. But it changed the lives of authors and of readers. And so I think it's ever since, I mean, I think it was the first time that you and I ever met in person. I remember you saying, Ron, is people come up to me all the time, ministry partners, and say, hey, I want to write a book. How do I do this? And so people listening right now, I think it's one of the best ways that you can kind of formalize what you know into this thing that will then go on to impact thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people, right? It's let you create leveraged impact through a book. And I know, maybe not everyone, but at least a pocket of people listening to this are, pastors, ministers, et cetera. You've already written a book.
Right.
Think about your best, most popular sermon series, 4-week series, 6-week series, 8-week series. That's a book.
Yes, it is.
You've already written it. And for the people who are like, hey, I'm not a writer, I'm not a pastor. Well, you've got something that probably people come to you for advice on, or that you're known for, or that you're passionate about, that you could write on. And so that's kind of my mission, and our mission is to help make that process easier so that you can go from that sermon series or those ideas to book published, and then use that to make a bigger impact.
So if let's say we got Sarah out there, and Sarah was once at one time extremely overweight, and she's gone through this journey of weight loss, and now she's turned into a fitness guru, and now, she has this journey of how she went through this life change and now she wants to turn around and help other people. And let's say she went online and she got a hold of your website. Mm-hmm. Tell me those steps.
Yeah. So first step that most people take is they book a call with one of the publishing strategists on my team, totally free. And that's where we kind of walk people through, hey, what are your goals for your book? What are your challenges with your book? What are your next steps? Like, how do we go from inspiration to implementation with this book? Because that's the thing. For most people, it stops right there. I want to, I want to do it. And
because they don't know how.
To do it. Yeah. It's either I don't know how, I don't think I have the time, and a mixture of those, people don't get started. So that's what that call is all about. And then if people say, hey, I'm interested and I want to work with you guys at Self Publishing School and selfpublishing.com, then we just plug them into the process. So we've got curriculum that we walk people through. We've got best-selling authors who are coaches who work one-on-one with our authors throughout the process. We help them get the book written and get ready to publish. And then as of recently, one of the big things that we do is now kind of that final mile of the publishing process, which is a big pain. The cover, the getting it ready to publish, the ISBN, the formatting, like all these things to make it feel like a traditionally published book, even though it's self-published and you get to keep 100% of the royalties, which is a big benefit.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so that's our goal, is traditional published quality with all the benefits of self-published, which is keeping all the royalties, maintaining your IP, you maintain control of the process, and you don't have a publisher telling you what you say and cannot say, do and cannot do, or ways that you can promote it, that sort of thing. So that's like a big picture view of the process that we try to work with people on. Our goal is to help them actually get it done, to save them hundreds of hours in the process, to save them thousands of dollars in the process. And then really at the end, that they have a book that they're proud of, that they feel like is going to further the message that they have and impact more lives in the process.
Absolutely.
That's so good. I think also I was just thinking when you said, and you get to keep 100% of the profits. That's huge, because Ron's written a book, I've written a book, and it's been with publishing companies, and we have made them tons and tons of money. We have made them so much money over the years, and still have not gotten a royalty check.
They're do this, Chandler, because when I tell you that people are ignorant of the process, I've always said ignorant don't mean stupid. Stupid is the inability to learn. Ignorant means I just don't know. And the fact is, even when I was writing my first book, I mean, I had to be extremely educated on this path and how it worked.
I sure do love our sponsor, Skillshare.
Skillshare.
Why do we love them? They provide a platform to where you can basically learn a brand new skill or brush up on the skills that you already have.
Skillshare.
It's never too late to learn something new or to start building something that's truly yours. Skillshare covers about every topic imaginable, with expert-led classes on life, web development, graphic design, photography, public speaking, and so much more. Listen, I'm personally going to take this class called Personal Productivity. 5 exercises to make your big goal a reality with Kate Ahrens. Each Skillshare class is broken into bite-sized modules packed with actionable insights. I'm a firm believer that you should learn something new every single day, and this platform gives us that opportunity. Skillshare is affordable. Its classes are under 60 minutes. You can ask questions. You can be a part of a great community of learners. Turn your passion into payday today with Skillshare. Visit Skillshare.com/Ron and Hope today to get your first month free. Visit Skillshare.com/Ron and Hope today to get your first month free.
What is the difference between you and a traditional publishing company deal?
Yeah, great question. So traditional publishers, they're kind of like banks, where they give, the saying is like banks give money to people who don't need it.
Right.
Traditional publishers typically will give a publishing deal to people who don't need publishing deals because they can sell books, right? And so I look at it, not to jumble a bunch of analogies, but I look at it almost kind of you guys are in the Bay Area now, venture capitalists, right? Where they place bets, and one of them is going to be wildly successful. They call that a unicorn in Silicon Valley. And then the others are going to do okay. And then a bunch of them are going to fail, right? And so that's really the model of publishing, is they make all of their money off of the unicorns, right?
Yeah.
You guys sold a bunch of books.
Right.
You're funding all the losses of the books that didn't do so well. Now, the downside for authors is that either way, it's kind of a not great experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so either I published and it didn't go well, and I don't get to keep any of the royalties, or I published and it went really well, and all I got was maybe an advance.
Right.
So kind of, if just on a bumper sticker, like the pro cons of traditional publishing, self-publishing. Traditional publishing, they're going to take most of the royalties, most if not all.
Let me say amen to that.
Yes, hallelujah.
Okay, let me say amen to that. Go ahead.
And then they might have access to expanded distribution, so bookstores and stuff. So that is one advantage. And then you might get a big advance. Now, if you can get a big advance, sometimes it's worth it. 99.9% of people, it makes more sense to self-publish, because long term you'll keep the royalties. Now you're gonna have to do a little bit more work. It's kind of a more entrepreneurial version of publishing a book, but that's where we've tried to make that process simpler, where you don't have to turn into a project manager and a book cover designer and inform all that stuff. So that's kind of the big picture difference. Is we don't keep any of the royalties. We do the services that help make the book better and then help coach people through the process. But that's kind of the main differences between us and a traditional publishing company.
Because I will tell you, I'm grateful for the experience, but my experience was not a great one. In fact, I was somewhat disappointed because it does seem like once the book was there, it just kind of dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
It really did. There were some real gaps in my process that I thought would be somewhat more efficient. Having said that, I don't think your listeners maybe know keeping 100% of the royalties, because when you do get, especially your first book deal, it's almost like selling your soul.
Yeah.
You get the crumbs off the table, even though you wrote the book and it's your stuff. You're paying them for all the machinery that they bring to your book. And I just want to know, what is does your company actually do the implementing of this into the bookstores and the Amazons, or is that something where their entrepreneurial spirit and your coaching has to take over?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So we help unlock international distribution digitally and online. We don't do the in-store bookstores because, the fact of the matter is that's still pretty much it's an antiquated industry with a lot of gatekeepers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, my brother on the music industry side of things with record labels and stuff like that. But we help unlock a lot of distribution. Now, 70% of all books sold are sold through Amazon and online retailers.
That's so true.
So that's where the majority of book sales are happening anyway. But we help with a lot of the more online distribution. But the difference on kind of like we were just, I guess, backtracking a little bit, or actually I'll say this, like no matter what, and I think this is a big misconception, is that as the author, you are responsible for marketing the book.
Yeah.
Now, we teach that a lot, and we've got a lot of things that work and all that, but whether you're traditionally published or self-published, I think this expectation isn't often set well, because a lot of people think, publishing through a publisher, they're going to market the book. The publisher's not going to market the book.
No, they don't.
Nope.
In fact, the first meeting, you probably have been through this, they're going to ask you, what's your plan?
Yeah.
To market the book. And so, but either way, so I think that's important for authors to know, is that you've got to get behind the book. And if you feel like you've created something that is valuable, that will help people, well, then you should.
Right.
And it's not just a flash of the pen 1 week. Hey, I put out a book, now drop it like it's hot and go on to the next thing. It's okay. This is something that I truly want to keep putting momentum behind so that it gets in the hands of as many readers as possible.
Yeah, you do. You have to.
You're going to have to jump in here because I got a lot of questions.
Go.
What? I've always said that disappointment is the childhood of false expectations. What is a reasonable expectation for a totally and completely unknown publisher who has a book, walks through your coaching school, finishes the project, And they grinding, and they're doing everything they can with what they have available, the tools at their disposal to market it. What is a reasonable expectation? Because I do sense there have been people that handed me their book and like, if you can get this in so and so's hand, it'd make me rich.
No.
And the fact is, Hope and I have spent our whole life building a pretty decent platform, and neither one of our books made us rich. We're grateful for them. They did well. Hope's did really well. But just set an expectation so they won't be sorely disappointed. I think you're in the industry every day. You know what that expectation should be.
Yeah, that's a great question, which shout out Hope knocking on the door of 500 reviews on the book on Amazon.
That's right.
Come on now. So there's two ends of the spectrum. The average self-published book sells less than 100 copies. That's not great.
Okay, yeah.
That's your mom, your grandma, and your family. And then, a traditionally published book is typically deemed a success if it sells 10, 15,000 copies. Like that's kind of just a lower benchmark of, okay, that's a kind of a break even at about that point. On average with us, we don't have a lot of hard numbers, but I'd say if you sell a couple thousand copies, like that's a solid first book with no audience. Now, that's where this varies wildly. I mean, we just got somebody was just posting in our internal company. We had someone who sold over 10,000 copies of fiction books, which are a lot harder to sell in the last year, and 1 million page reads, working with our fiction side of the business, right? And so it varies wildly. And we've had people sell tens of thousands of copies, and we've had people sell a few hundred copies and not care, because they don't care about selling copies of the book. They just want to get it in the hands of their family.
And
so
I think
that's where it really depends.
I think it's a win. For everybody's win's different. I just think some people just want to get it off of their heart and to feel accomplished that, man, I did this. Look, I published this book. Other people's win might be, I broke even. I joined your self-publishing school. It cost X amount of dollars. I sold enough to break even. And somebody else's win might be, wow, somebody picked this up and it's hugely successful financially. So I think everybody's win is different, but I think the general public really just want a way to say, how can I publish I've published my own book. I have this copy here.
What is the dynamic, pardon me, what is the dynamic, Chandler, behind that unknown that just strikes gold? Well, they just, I'm thinking about like the Harry Potter lady.
Yeah.
An unknown.
Or the Twilight.
Yeah, the Twilight. The unknowns, woman's fighting depression, had a horrible life, and just started pinning down these stories.
Yeah.
And then she could buy an island. I mean, it's what are some of the dynamics?
How did that get in somebody's head?
What goes from an unknown to explosion? What is that?
I think there's two components. There's the book and then there's the author, right? And I'll start with the book side of things and go into what the author does. I talk about the 4 P's of a best-selling book: person, pain, promise, price. And from what I've seen is they just nail those. So person, who is the person that you're writing this book for? And very specific. So if you're listening to this right now, you've got this book idea, I want you to think about one person in your life who needs this book, and then write that book specifically to them. And when you write it specifically to them, there will be a bunch of other people just like them.
That's good.
Oh my gosh,
that is so good.
That's good.
Right? And then the pain, what's the pain that they have that they know that they have? Right? And I think you did a great job, Hope, in your book, which is, let's see, this is the most beautiful disaster, right? How God makes it out of our mistakes.
Yeah.
And so immediately, how God makes miracles out of our mistakes, I can connect that and personalize it for me. There's a mistake that I've made that I know that I've made that this book might be able to help me with, right? So that's the pain that I have that I know that I have. And then what's the promise that I'm making with this book? And then the price point that makes sense. So the books that really do well, they nail that. Now, on the fiction side of things, like you mentioned a couple of fiction authors, the promise is entertainment.
Right.
And it's filling a gap. And, nonfiction is kind of a baseball analogy. It's way easier to hit doubles and singles and even triples. And then fiction, the authors that make the most money write fiction, but it's grand slam or 100 strikeouts.
Yeah.
It's like it's way harder to do decent in fiction, but then if you do well, you do super well. So that's kind of genre differences. But I think really nailing the book side, and then there's just the author side, which is what I call the 1-year launch. It's committing to marketing that book long term, and that's where I think you've got a little bit of an unfair advantage with running a church, but I would lean into that with your next book. Is I've just seen so many different pastors do such an awesome job. Is you've got a sermon series that connects to the book. Maybe there's even, I feel like Mike Todd, I think when he released his relationship goals book, did a devotional and did a relationship kind of, and the book was interwoven and all that. And so it's like almost providing a curriculum alongside this sermon series, which, I mean, it just moves a ton of books.
Yeah.
So it's very beneficial from the book side of things. It's very beneficial from getting people in your church to implement. It's like Zig Ziglar always says, if somebody comes to I can't change someone's life through a 45-minute talk, but if they go up to my talk and they buy the books and the tapes and that sort of thing, then I can create a truly lasting impact. That's kind of how I see that piece.
What about just a practical? We were talking about Ron relaunching his book. How does that work? How do you do that? How does that even work?
Yeah, I love that idea. I taught in Publish, which is my new book. I've got a whole chapter about relaunches. I'm trying to flip through it real quick because there's a few different types of relaunches. So a lot of times the first edition of the book, it might do great, it might do not so great, but either way, I think just about everyone should relaunch their book. And a relaunch is really just a specific promotion period around your book. You could go as far as like, this is the second edition of the first book, right? And so I did a relaunch, but I launched a second edition, which you could totally do. It could be updated and revised. You could do new cover, new title. You could even, I'm just looking here. You could even, some people will launch an additional format and use that as an excuse to relaunch. Like, let's say if you didn't have an audiobook or something, or a paperback or something like that. But so there's a bunch of ways to do it. I think I would definitely do it. The only thing that can be a little bit tricky sometimes is if you've published the first edition through a publisher.
And we did.
We did. Random House. And then maybe, I forget the Hachette. But I think Faith Words was maybe the imprint. And so sometimes that can be a little bit tricky, like doing it out. You might have to just do a new book or negotiate a new deal with that person.
Right.
So that's the only thing that could be just a little bit tricky.
Yeah. And because, I mean, especially being a pastor, any pastors listening, any life coach, the longer you live, the more you learn, the more you know.
Hopefully.
And hopefully.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like with Ron's, there would be so much new and fresh information, like 2.0, the name of his book, 2.0, more information, more chapters, whatever. But that's so you do recommend people who have already published a book sometime or another in their life to relaunch. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's just a matter of, do you relaunch or do you do the next book?
Got it.
I've always thought, Ron, you should write a book on the kingdom.
I
know that's, I've just preached on that so much. And I just remember that from being a kid. I'm like, oh man, but I'm sure you've got 100 of those core concepts like that, where you can say,
I've probably got 500 series I preach.
I know.
I'm not kidding. Probably
he
500.
needs to take a year off of preaching, probably, and sit down and write.
So I got to pick and choose which one of these are going to go in print and not. I don't feel like a great writer. I feel like I say it better than I write it. But the fact is, I do know that the best way to get something to be a legacy is to put it on paper and to get it in print. And I certainly want everything I've said to outlast me. So I am starting to think along those lines. How can I do that? Tell us one of your best success stories. I mean, somebody that you helped, and I'm not talking about they went on to be a #1 New York Times bestseller, but somebody who you walked them through the process and you would kind of put their picture on the wall as, this is what our company's about right here.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably two. There's one is a really successful memoir. It's called Redefining Normal. It's Justin and Alexis Black. and they grew up in the foster adopt system. And that's what their book is about, is redefining normal.
Wow.
And found each other, got married. And it's about kind of giving hope to people who are growing up in the foster adopt system and saying, hey, this is our story. Now, memoirs don't sell well unless you're Matthew McConaughey or, and they have sold that book like crazy. It's gotten all these book awards. They're doing traveling, doing speaking, and inspiring people. So that's one fun example. Another one is 8-year-old Emma Sumner.
What?
So this is one of our youngest authors. Her dad worked with us and did a couple books. She saw that. She said, hey, Dad, I want to do that. And he said, okay, hey, go write 50 or 500 words and come back. It's just like a little roadblock. It's like, okay, this is probably a fleeting thing. She came back a few hours later and had those words written. And then they went, I think, every weekend to Panera Bread and worked on the book. And then she wrote this kid's book, and it made $4,000 in the first few months.
Oh, wow.
She donated all of that to autism awareness.
Oh, my goodness.
Through Autism Speaks. And then now she gets an allowance, which is really just royalty money from her books every month.
That is
and she's
so
done speaking,
cool.
like speaking at her school and all, and just thinking about the trajectory of that young woman, the confidence that's built, the life skills that have been built. I mean, I think she's maybe in 10th grade now. It's been years, maybe 9th grade or something.
Man,
yeah, there's no
crazy.
telling.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
There's no telling what she will go on to write.
Is it a child's book?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah. It's called The Fairies of Waterfall Island. So it's a kid's book, and she's done awesome with it.
Dang, I'm gonna read
she
that.
went to speak at her school. What's that?
He said, I'm going to read that.
Dang, I'm going to read that one. Yeah. I need to talk to a fairy about right now anyway.
Oh, man.
What other questions we got? Because I want to make sure that our hearers are getting everything they can.
I'm sure the people listening are saying, okay, well, how much is this going to cost me?
I knew. I was wondering if we were going to go there.
What's the range? What is the range of somebody who wants to publish a book? They need to know what the investment will be.
Yeah, great question. So we found it's, to publish a book successfully typically takes somewhere in the range of about 10 grand.
Yeah. It's
kind of the range that we look at. Now, our pricing anywhere between 6 grand to 12 grand, kind of in that range, depending on how much help people need, how much services they need, all that's what type of book they're writing, where they're at in the process. But that's the ballpark of what it costs to work with us. And then our goal is to save them thousands of dollars in the publishing process. It's all these things that you're going to have to spend money on anyway.
Yes.
Cover designer, formatter,
right.
ISBN, all this stuff. So save them a bunch of money, save them hundreds of hours worth of their time,
yes,
which is worth a lot of money. And then help them actually get the book done and then keep the royalties, which the upside piece, I mean, depending on how well you sell the book, that's where the ROI can really go crazy in terms of working with us, because we charge a one-time fee up front.
That's amazing.
And we're not sticking our hands in their pocket, taking royalties or anything like that. We're not even, we give them everything and we say, hey, here it is. This is yours. Go market this book.
That's huge, Chandler. After being with, publishing a book, you've published a book. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
I was just in there saying, for those of you who don't know this process, he's talking about one-time fee to get you where you need to be with this book. I want you to know, me and Hope will be paying our publishing company forever.
Yeah.
Forever. Talking about hands in the pockets.
And our agent.
Yeah, they got your hands in your pocket, and the agent's got the hands in the pocket. All these people. And like I said, by the time it gets through, you feel like you're catching crumbs from a table, even though it was the investment of your work and your life. Do you provide ghostwriters to people who may have a great story but are not a great writer?
Yeah, great question. We don't. What I recommend instead, because ghostwriting, it can be extremely difficult. And you can hire a good ghostwriter. There's companies and people out there for 20, 30, 50, some charge 100,000 plus for good ghostwriters. I mean, it's very expensive to get a good one. Now, in my experience, a lot of times what ends up happening is, when I read the rough draft of a book that I've written, I think, this sucks. I'm like, who wrote this? Now imagine if I paid 30 grand and I read a draft and it's not in my life. It's really hard to do it right. And so what I recommend instead is, and this kind of goes back to, you were saying, hey, I've got 500 sermon series, is, so if you've got that 8 sermon series, Or if you've got, we talk about this, I talk about this in this book, is mind map, outline, rough draft, right? And mind map and outline. And then some people can speak that book one chapter at a time using the outline. But then, like in your case, Ron, when you've got let's call it a 6-week sermon series or 4-week sermon series, if that is the main theme of the book, well, you can start from there. Is you could say, all right, I want to write this book, and I'm going to start with a 6-week series, and that 6-week series, I'm going to preach it. And then now I'm going to use that and get that transcribed. And then I can do work as an editor to make it better, so I don't feel like I've got to go from scratch to just put words on the page in type form, but play to your strengths and then either write or speak, whichever one is your strength.
Gotcha.
That's so good.
We've been on a little over a half hour, so I want to wrap it up. I want to know, is there anything about your life, your publishing company, what you do, that we've not asked you a question that's enabled you to say it yet? I want you to be able to tell our listeners, because I got a feeling we're hitting a broader community than maybe we even think, because it's just amazing to me how many people really feel like they have something that's just rich, but they think they'll never have a vehicle in which to get it out. So I want you to be able to take the floor and give your last comments to them, and just pump yourself and your business. Take this time to advertise yourself and let them know, hey guys, we can help you.
Yeah. So we've published about 7,000 books over the last 7.5 years. And so it's 2-3 books a day. So we do this all day, every day. And our big goal is to publish 100,000 books by 2035. So we've made a lot of progress. We got a long way to go. And we'd love to help you with your book if you're interested. So kind of like Ron mentioned earlier, that first step, if you're interested, go book a call with my team. Totally free. We'll talk to you about your goals for your book, your challenges with your book, your next steps. Go to selfpublishing.com/apply. So selfpublishing.com/apply. And we'd love to help you with the book. There's never going to be a perfect time to do it. You're going to have to get started before you're ready. You're going to have to make the time. And so that's what I would kind of leave with. And Ron and Hope, you guys have been such an inspiration to me over the years. And just a lot of this would not, I feel like I'm a better speaker and a better CEO and leader, and because of the lessons that I learned inside Redemption over the years, and then from afar since then. And so you guys have just been such a huge blessing to me. And I mean, when we publish books, that's why I'm always like, hey, we're donating back to Redemption.
Yes, you are.
And a bunch of other churches.
You've been very generous.
I mean, that's the impact that books create, right? That books create is the impact on the life of readers, but then impact on the life of my employees, our customers, nonprofits, churches, from the profits of the business. So it's
so much good.
I'm standing on your guys' shoulders.
So much good.
Well, I want to tell our listeners, if you are contemplating, praying about, it's on your heart to publish a book, I would not recommend any other place than with Chandler Bolt in Self-Publishing School, because he is a Christian, Spirit-filled believer, and he also he's huge. He's one of our largest givers.
Very generous.
Yeah, he's so generous. And so you need to bless what he's doing, because the blessing of God is clearly on it. How long have you been in business? Yeah,
we launched in February 2015, so about 7.5 years or so. Going on
So proud of you. Man, we really are. And we speak blessings over you. This venture, and I'm sure there'll be many more, because you're an entrepreneur. This won't be the only thing you do. I know that. So we just know that God's going to bless your hands in everything that you endeavor to do.
We appreciate so much you giving us your time. Maybe the next time we'll talk to you, it'll be about a relaunch. All right. Hey, man, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And to all you guys out there that's been watching the podcast, blessings to you. We love you guys as well.